With the recent release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we got a much closer look at the first version of Kang the Conqueror to make his big screen debut, which has been plaguing the quantum realm for several decades now. In Quantumania, we got to learn a bit about his backstory, and a bit about his relationship with not only the inhabitants of the quantum realm, but other variants of himself as well. As the story progressed, one curious detail has shown that this particular Kang is actually rather special among the multiverse. Spoilers lie ahead for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It has been hinted that this particular Kang may have been one of, if not the first violent iteration of the character that the Council of Kangs has ever come across, and it seems as if he has opened the doorway for conquest among his brethren. Up until now, we have seen little evidence of other violent or even malicious Kangs, and the Council even alludes to the idea that this event is an isolated incident. As Kang the Conqueror in Quantumania explains that he personally has been conquering timelines for several lifetimes now. But why exactly is this, and what is this warrior Kang's motivations? What impact will this have on the other Kangs going forward? And most importantly, how did Warrior Kang set the Kang War in motion? A pivotal point in the Marvel comics. Well, stick with us today, watchers of the Marvel multiverse, and let's dive into this Kang's motivation and how, even after his supposed death, he is set to influence the rest of his variants and potentially even be the primary instigator for the multiversal war itself. In the end credits scene, we see that Immortus has summoned all other Kangs into a grand coliseum, and though we can't get a specific count, there seems to be hundreds of variants present during this meeting. Throughout the course of the video, we will make reference to the absolutes, using phrases like all Kangs or every Kang, and this is the society of course that we are talking about. Since the multiverse is effectively limitless, there is no way to account for every single iteration of the character of Kang, but when we mention that this warrior Kang may have been the first to incite violence, we are referring to him being the first in this immediate societal circle, not necessarily within the entirety of the complete multiverse, more so being a part of the council and one of the first to go to war with the rest of the council. With that out of the way, let's first discuss why he seems to have done this. Kang in the comics is known for conquering entire timelines and subjugating them to his singular rule. But this version that we see in Quantumania doesn't just conquer timelines, he outright annihilates them. He has eviscerated entire realities, wiping them from existence, and purging trillions of lives in the process. But where this Kang is unique is he does not keep the timeline alive in order to rule on it. So why exactly does he decide not to do this, and decide solely to conquer but not rule? In the movie, he explains that he knows how this all is set to end, with one cohesive timeline that is meant to re-establish order within the universe, an idea which is a direct reference to another Kang variant that we've seen before in He Who Remains at the end of Loki. Warrior Kang even goes as far to show the sacred timeline itself, indicating that he understands exactly how this is going to shape out, and exactly how He Who Remains is going to reconstruct the universe. We also know that Warrior Kang holds a particular disdain for his variants, calling them children, and ridiculing their immaturity in playing with the multiverse. And it seems as if he knows that war is on the horizon. Is it possible that Kang is actually purging individual realities in order to prevent as many variants of himself from spawning, in order to perhaps stop the multiversal war, or at least slow it down? Warrior Kang seems to understand the inherent threat that he himself poses to the multiverse, and he even warns Ant-Man that he's the only thing standing in the way of Earth-616's destruction. It seems as if he has been warning the Council of imminent war before eventually taking matters into his own hands, and we propose that this is why Kang began his conquests. This is actually not too dissimilar to what Thanos himself did before the culmination of the Infinity Saga just a few short years ago. Throughout the course of his life, Thanos identified planet populations as a multiversal problem, and he went from world to world in order to enact his genocide, before deciding that there was a more effective way to do so, which eventually led him to assembling the Infinity Gauntlet. Before Thanos had access to the stones, however, he had to work with what he had, and take his battles to each individual planet that he found. And it seems as if Kang might be doing something akin to this, only on a much larger scale that encompasses entire timelines. Each timeline Warrior Kang destroys is one fewer Kang that will eventually wreak havoc on the remainder of the Kangs and the remainder of the multiverse. And since we know that this Kang does not yet have access to Alioth the Usurper, the weapon that destroyed the multiverse in the first place, and cannot enact this genocide across several timelines at once, he might be doing the best he can to prune as many worlds as possible alone. So then, then, if this is his motivation, and it is to kill as many kings as possible by stopping their worlds from ever existing, how would this impact the Council of Kangs in a much more profound way? And how would Warrior Kang's actions directly lead to the war between universes? The primary idea is that this Kang serves as something of an inspiration for the rest, setting an example that others are set to eventually follow. If this Kang knows how the multiversal conflict ends, then it stands to reason that other Kangs do as well, and might look to the actions of Warrior Kang as a reasonable idea, even taking it upon themselves to do the same. In fact, we already know that one particular variant of Kang holds this idea in very high esteem, that being He Who Remains, who is currently somewhere out in the multiverse preparing his own attack on reality and likely the rest of the council. While we are yet to meet He Who Remains in his youth, we do know that he is set to end his life like he did in Loki, but stay tuned for a later video where we assess where He Who Remains is right now and what he's up to in more detail. Is it possible though that Warrior Kang inspired He Who Remains to take up a very similar mindset? Could it be that the events leading up to and including Quantumania inspired He Who Remains to begin his journey that will eventually end at the Citadel at the end of time, speaking to Loki and Sylvie before the next cycle of destruction begins again? If so, how many other Kangs might have he inspired, and how many other Kangs are destined to eradicate each other by following this ideal that this one individual Warrior Kang set forth, and that the council was forced to banish because of it? If this is true, then it would imply that this Kang is actually the driving force behind a destiny that he set out to avoid, and his actions might have been directly responsible for fulfilling the prophecy of Kang the Conqueror. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this idea? Do you think that Warrior Kang inspired He Who Remains to rebuild the multiverse into one sacred timeline? Or do you believe that something else is going on here? And what are your thoughts on the in-depth reason why the Council of Kangs was forced to banish Warrior Kang, as it appears as if he may actually be the first Kang to become a conqueror? How many Kangs do you think will be inspired by this warrior variant, and what other ramifications will this one iteration have on the rest of the Kangs and the multiverse? As always, my friends, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and we'll hopefully see you in another video.